Hey, welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Amy Smith. I'm an Ops Manager and Client Liaison here at the Greenhouse, and today's guest is Patrick Metzger. He's the CEO and founder of the Greenhouse, as well as a certified EOS implementer, certified value builder advisor, and exit strategy advisor as well. Patrick's webinar today is going to focus on maximizing the value of your business and strategies for planning a successful exit. By the end of today's webinar, you'll have key action items and tools that you can begin implementing immediately. Before I turn it over, I just want to remind everybody that on the right side of your screen, there is a comments and questions column that we'll address at the beginning, or excuse me, at the end. In a Q&A session when Patrick's done. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Patrick. Happy to have you part of this today.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Amy. And this is our first webinar we're putting out here. So excited to talk today about exit planning. And if you're a business owner listening to this, this is going to be an awesome opportunity to talk about how do we build more value in your business. As you really go through the journey of entrepreneurship, and whether you're at the very, very beginning stages or whether you're kind of nearing the end, you know, looking at exit succession, we're going to have a ton of awesome information in here for you. All right. So, okay, let's get cruising, huh? All right. Okay. First thing, a little bit about just us at the Greenhouse. So we've worked with hundreds of companies, business owners, and really what we specialize in is three things: business growth, business scalability, and exit succession planning. And our core focus, all right, we run our company on EOS. I'm a certified EOS implementer. We run our company on EOS as well. Our core focus is growing businesses and people to the next stage. So what we're really, really passionate about is whatever stage you are at in your business. Like I said, some of you may be very early stage, some of you might be more late stage. We're really passionate about saying, hey, what's the next place you want to get to? What's the next stage you want to be at? And really giving you the tools, the systems, the processes, and coaching you, consulting you, guiding you through kind of that ceiling that you need to break through to really get to that next stage, all right? So really our three core offerings at the Greenhouse consist of EOS. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the entrepreneurial operating system, it's a fantastic system. We've implemented it with over 80+ companies around North America. It really helps owners dial in vision as far as where they're at, where they're going, really clarify that for the organization. Really helps with what we call traction, so the accountability, the focus, the discipline you need in your organization to really help scale things. And then the healthy piece, which is the high-performing, high-functioning team that you really need in order to run a successful organization. Second piece is what we call value builder, and that's a big chunk of what we're going to go through today is our value builder system. And that's really a platform that we run business owners through. And it takes them through 8 key value drivers, among other information, and really focusing on how do we intentionally turn our business from maybe a profitable, well-running business, but really something that has more value and it's really transferable to that next owner, okay? Whether that's planned or many times it's unplanned and not really within your decision-making power, unfortunately. And then third item is just certified exit planning. So our function really in that whole process is to act as the quarterback within your exit planning process and guide you through workshops and working with an exit planning team that we'll talk about a little bit later, and really helping quarterback that whole process. Because exit planning, I'll tell you this, exit planning, there's a lot to it. And what we see with most owners is they wait way too long to really start considering, man, what do I need to be doing now to be thinking about exit? And also, you know, the one that's really, really missed is, what if something were to happen to me today? You know, what if some sort of accident, whether I, you know, couldn't be at work for 3 months, 6 months, or heaven forbid, you're not able to anymore, right? You pass away, whatever it may be. There's a lot of things that are kind of hanging in the balance as far as your employees and your company. And, you know, you may have IP, and there's all kinds of things to consider. So exit planning is so, so important to whether you're really intentionally planning for a certain time down the road, or just to make sure that you have everything, kind of all your ducks in a row, so that if something were to happen, that business transfers appropriately, okay? One thing we always like to say is exit strategy is really, really good business strategy, okay? And it drives the value of your business up, okay? Among these other three things, oh yeah, we do leadership coaching, niched consulting. We've done workshops around team health, communication, all those kinds of things as well, okay? But we're really passionate about helping you grow to that next stage. So here's what we're really going to dive into today. So first thing is just the importance of value building and exit planning, which I kind of touched on already. Second thing is we're going to go through the 8 key drivers of value, and we're going to kind of have fun with it by kind of putting out the misconception that we see directly from business owners that we work with, because we hear these misconceptions all the time and need to correct them and go, whoa, 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 hold on. That's actually not true. Here's what you should be doing, or here's what you can be doing. So we're talking about how to drive value. Then we're going to talk about, what does exit succession planning actually look like? Okay, so if you think of moving toward that point in time, what should you be doing now, whether you're a year, a couple years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years even, okay, from exit. One of our favorite things to do is when business owners come to us looking to start a business, as we ask them right away, how do you plan on exiting this business? And they usually look at us like we're crazy, but we say, we want to really have strong intentionality around how are we going to do this and what are we intentionally building along the way. Then, as Amy mentioned, we'll do some Q&A at the end. Hopefully we have a few minutes for that. And then the last thing we're going to give to you at the end here is we have some awesome gifts to provide you that are literally, not kidding, worth thousands of dollars in value. A couple of them being estimated business valuation, where are you at kind of as far as a multiplier in your industry. Also a financial calculator as far as where am I at now and where do I need to be, what should I be looking at as far as financially. And then also something that we call the pre-score, which stands for personal readiness. And that's really looking at, hey, if I'm thinking about exit, am I really ready to do this from a personal perspective? All right, so wait till the very end, we'll drop those in there. And then the other thing I really want to tee up is, as we go through this, please know business valuations always vary. Okay, there's different types of sales and different ways that people value businesses. Okay, and that is not our specialty. Okay, there are people that do that figure those things, but what our specialty and expertise is we know how to drive more value in your organization and to coach around those items. All right. So first thing let's start with is just the biggest mistakes when starting a business. First thing is, how do I get out of this? Like I mentioned, business owners many times don't really realize or think about, you know, if I'm starting this business, how do I get out of this business? Second item is the proper structures. Okay, so thinking of, as I'm building my business here, you know, when you start a business, you're moving toward profit right away, cash flow, need to make money. But as you move later and later, and as your business matures, you really need to start thinking about what kind of revenue do I need? What kind of people do I need? What kind of processes do I need to drive value actually in my business that can transfer over to somebody in another way? Second item, short game approach versus long game. Okay. So most business owners think very, very short term rather than years down the road. What am I intentionally trying to create here, and how does exit look maybe at that point, or what do I desire and why? So first thing I want to throw out here is put yourself in the buyer's shoes. So as you kind of think from here forward in this webinar, I want you to start thinking from the perspective of a potential buyer. Okay? Because right now you've been focused on you and what benefits you and what helps you in your business right now. When you start thinking exit succession, now your focus has to be what's valuable to them. What's important to them as a buyer? What are they looking at and really scrutinizing within your business? Second item, really that shift, that mental shift from management and profit, because when you're running a business, those are the things you think of, to how do I now shift that mental thought to more of an ownership and value mentality? Because again, we have to create transferable value at the end of the day. All right, some statistics. And Amy, I don't know if you're seeing goofed up slides there for some reason when they popped in here, but maybe it's just a sizing on my frame here. But 51% of American businesses, first of all, are owned by baby boomers right now. In the next decade, there'll be roughly $14 trillion worth of businesses transitioned over the next decade, maybe from those boomers. 75% of owners regret their decision to sell the business 1 year after exit. And if you want a really key fact around this one, the reason they typically regret it, large majority, is they don't know what they're going to do after. Okay, it's not usually money driven because they didn't get enough money or anything like that. It's because now that I've sold my business, many times my identity kind of has gone with it, and I'm really not quite sure what I'm going to do. So it's so important in the exit planning process, and we help you through this of defining that those personal goals and what does life look like beyond once you move past that exit succession piece. And then third item, 5% of owners are happy with their net proceeds from selling their business. And usually they wish, like, man, probably could have squeezed out more value from that business. And then the last item is only a quarter of businesses that actually go to market sell, which is pretty wild when you think of it, because we have business owners that, you know, they come to us all the time and they're saying, yo, I have a great business and it's profitable and it makes cash. And they think like, oh, the second I put it up for sale, all these people are going to want it. And that's not the case. You know, a true third-party strategic buyer buying your business is actually doesn't happen super often. Okay? A ton of businesses don't sell. Okay. Lots of businesses, they're liquidated for assets, things like that. And that's why it's so important to really plan along the way very, very strategically of how does this exit look, even looking at what are those potential buyers and how do we need to tee our business up so that it's really appealing in those people's eyes. Okay, first misconception. So one of the big misconceptions we hear is our books make perfect sense. That means they're accurate. They make perfect sense to the buyer. Okay, so really around the financial piece, financial performance. This is one of the first drivers, all right? And here's what you have to realize is it's more than just your top line revenue and bottom line profit. You need quality numbers when we look at your finances. So if you look at how businesses are typically valued, depending on size, type of business, it's really valued around your what we call seller discretionary earnings or your EBITDA. Okay, so earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Okay, so there's also different types of sales like asset sales and things like that if you're really, really heavy asset wise. Okay, but then another thing we need to consider is as you're looking to sell is one of the things we're going to do is in this process, we normalize or recast your numbers, because when you're running a business, typically as an owner, you're plugging all these things into your business, you know, your life insurance and your health insurance and vehicles and all this stuff. We need to kind of move all those puzzle pieces per se and figure out what is your business actually worth when we back you out of the business as the owner and all those different things that are running through the business. So we normalize or recast your numbers, And that kind of gives us a truer sense to that buyer of what do your numbers actually really look like. And then also, what does it cost to replace you as the owner? Typically, you are the key cog in the business. When you structure a business really intentionally, really well, you work yourself out over time, or we always say you're wanted but not needed. But a buyer coming in, they have to consider, hey, I have to replace you. That might be a $300,000–$400,000 role for somebody, and we're gonna have to figure that into the numbers as well. So one of the recommendations around just a financial performance piece is getting an audit and formal business valuation. And that's one of the very first steps in our process with owners, is having them get a good business valuation so they can actually see what they're really working with, having those numbers audited, because then we kind of know what we're working with from the very beginning, and that's half the battle right away. All right, misconception number 2 is people think my business is worth X amount of dollars and I'm going to get this, certain multiplier, because that's how much business we typically or consistently do and will do. Or they talk to their person at the country club, or someone else in their industry, and oh yeah, your business is probably worth this because I sold mine for XYZ. That's not the case. Every business is so unique with so many different types of capital and intangibles and such. You really have to break down through this process kind of all of those individual pieces until you get a really good, clear picture of that business. So this is where growth potential comes in. And buyers are purchasing not the past and present, but they are purchasing the future of your business. So as a current owner, you're thinking about, here's where my business is at and it's doing really well. As a seller, a buyer is coming in and they're looking at it for what's the blue sky that exists. This is the finishing line for you, but it's the starting blocks for a buyer for your business. So they're going to look at, hey, does this business have the potential to scale? Does it have the ability to scale? Are there future offerings and services that will be able to tack onto this current business in order to drive more revenue, drive more profit? Is there a bigger geographic that we can tackle? Okay, is this business limited right now, but there's a lot of blue sky, blue ocean to attack, and they maybe haven't done that yet as a current owner? And then they're buying maybe a book versus buying an opportunity. Many businesses, they think they have a lot of value, but really at the end of the day, as an owner, they're so involved in the business. Really, all you have is a book of clients, and sometimes there's just not a whole lot of value to that. It really depends on the type of revenue that you have with that current book of clients. All right, misconception number 3 is we have the best customers, employees, and vendors, and they stick with us. So this value driver, we call Switzerland structure. So if you know anything about Switzerland, they're an independent country. So this is all about dependency. And if your business has too much dependency on certain things, it creates a lot of handcuffs and it creates a lot of risk. So if you think of customers, employees, suppliers, vendors, if you are really dependent on one or a few, let's say employees as an example, you have an employee where if they left, it would put you in an impossible situation. That is going to devalue your business because that's a big risk for somebody coming in and buying. If you have only one vendor and you lack vendor diversity, that's a big risk. If that vendor goes out of business, now that puts your current business at risk. So Switzerland structure is all about looking at the diversity that we have within those areas and finding more and as much as we possibly can. Misconception number 4 that we hear is, hey, we pay our bills, we make payroll, we're profitable, we must have awesome value behind our business. And this is where what we call the valuation teeter-totter driver comes in. So the valuation teeter-totter is all about operating cash for the business. So when a buyer comes in to look at your business, they really have to write 2 checks. They have to write one to buy the business. And if your business needs a lot of cash to operate, they also have to fund that operating capital right out the gate. So they're not just buying the business, they're having to throw on a whole nother big lump sum on top of that in order to just get the business running right away. So what we really focus on within this driver is looking at how do we minimize the amount of cash needed to operate, because the more cash needed to operate, it's going to lower the value in your business. So as we coach teams through this and leaders through this, we really look at how do we optimize cash flow, okay? Because we have to be generating as much cash as we possibly can. So how do we do that? We look at ways to extend out AP. We look at how do we accelerate those accounts receivable coming in. I've had businesses before that have $5, $6, $7, even $8 million in accounts receivable sitting out there. And we've worked really hard to change processes to bring in more of that money faster so that they have way better cash flow. Right? Okay, misconception number 5 is, hey, we're a revenue profit machine. We must be really, really valuable. Must be through the roof. Okay. This is where the quality of your revenue comes in, and this driver we call recurring revenue. So question we ask is, how does the revenue roll when the owner and or key personnel leave? So that's something to think about. Is, let's say you have a salesperson in your business that crushes it all the time. When the business is sold, is that salesperson still going to be around? Okay. If they are, and if they can stay, you're probably going to maintain some good value. If that salesperson might jet because of the sale that occurs, that's a big risk. Obviously, that's going to lower value. So that's something to think about. And then just the quality of your revenue, like we said. So if you look at kind of the ladder that we call of recurring revenue that exists, it starts with, at the very bottom kind of rung, is what we call consumables. So if you sell just a consumable, you have a really low quality of revenue. So something like a K-cup or a toothbrush, something like that. Just pick your random, a mug like this. Okay, that's just a consumable. As you go up a little bit higher and create more value behind that revenue, you have what's called sunk money. So if you buy like a Keurig machine, okay, let's just say, that's something that's sunk, but now you also are guaranteeing that people are going to have to buy that consumable with it. If you move up to a subscription, now you have more regular revenue, but it's not maybe necessarily guaranteed if people can cancel it at any point. And then if you add all those kind of together, you have what's called a sunk money subscription. So if you think of like a home security system, you pay maybe thousands of dollars to have it installed, but now you're going to be on a contract also to make sure that your security system is providing the photo or the video and all that you need. So you have to have the system, and you also have to have probably a contract or an agreement behind using that system. So you have a lot more value there. Something that auto renews is going to provide a lot more value. So you think of like Google storage, or you're paying for extra digital storage or whatever. Some people do photos or things like that, or like a e-file storage system. Okay, people don't want to get rid of that because there's so much valuable information in there. And if it auto renews without somebody having to click something, every month or whatever, you're going to have a lot of value behind that. And then at the very, very top of this ladder is what we call contract revenue. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Let's say you have multiple $million-dollar contracts. They're inked. They're really hard to get out of. And let's say you have those for a couple years each. Now you have guaranteed revenue. So the value of your business is going to go up because a buyer coming in already knows that that revenue is guaranteed to come through the door. Okay? Therefore, there's a lot less risk that exists there. So at the end of the day, what we're really driving here is how do we move you up the ladder when it comes to the type of revenue that you are creating. And as a business, we coach businesses on how do we build in more of these higher value types of revenue. Okay, I've had businesses that sell, consumables or a service, and then we've said, hey, can we build in some sort of subscription tied to this, or some sort of contracted service now tied to this? And they really up the value of that revenue, and they also brought in more profit. And usually there's a pretty good margin on that profit and revenue also, because many times there's not a whole lot of work tied to that in some way, shape, or form. So like I said, goal is to move up higher on that ladder toward recurring and more contracted revenue. Misconception number 6 is, hey, we're the best at what we do, we're really good at it, and we're doing better than anyone else. We must have a lot of value. This is what we call monopoly control, all right, within our value builder system as one of our value drivers. And I challenge you to think about how truly different are you than your competitors, okay? Is your business one of many like that in the area or geographic or online space or whatever? You know, how truly unique is your business? And one of the concepts I love to bring companies through when we work with them is what we call the experience economy. So thinking of how much of your business is really a commodity. If you think of like gasoline, that's a commodity. People are going to always look for a rock bottom lowest price because it's pretty darn similar across the board. Okay? All the way up through, hey, now add a little bit more to it or make it unique. Now you have a product. Add a service to it. Now you have more value. Make it a really unique experience. Now you have even more value. Do it faster than anybody else can do. Now you have transformation. Now you really have high value. So if you think of one of the examples I always give the teams I work with is if you think of going to get a massage somewhere, okay? Like when my wife and I go on vacation, that's one of her things to do. She likes to go get a massage. I hang by the pool, read a book, whatever. But massages, if you add like the really cool, you know, ambiance and, you know, this service, that service, you know, all these different things as part of it. And, you know, they offer or they make it unique in some special way, you know, where other people don't do it like that or whatever it may be. Now you're moving up into a really unique experience or really unique transformation. You know, I think of when my wife has come back from those and she's like, oh, this was so awesome. Like they had this room and then you went through this thing and that thing. And she's like, oh, it was so worth it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, glad you enjoyed it. But she's willing to pay a lot more money for something like that because it is so unique and different. Okay, you could get a massage lots of different places. All right, obviously, wherever geographically, you know, or you know, within your town, there's all these different places to go to, and they're all probably at different prices. But who really does it uniquely or differently? All right. Another one to think of is like gas. Think of gasoline. You know, back 50, 60 years ago, when people would come out, they'd pump your gas, they'd wipe your windshield and all of that. Now you're taking it from a commodity to more of a service or maybe even a unique experience. So now the value of that product, service, or offering goes up. So really we're looking for how personalized, how differentiated is your business. The more we can do that, the higher value you have. And a great quote around this was from Warren Buffett. He said, a good business is like a strong castle with a deep moat around it. He says, I want sharks in the moat. I want it untouchable. Okay, think of like a SpaceX, you know, that Elon Musk has launched, you know, so unique. Nobody else is doing that. Crazy amount of value behind something like that at some point. All right, misconception number 7 is, hey, our customers love us. They'll continue to do business with us after it's sold. Not necessarily. So this comes down to customer satisfaction. So this is our number 7 value driver. And what is it that your customers truly love? Okay, why do they continue to do business with you? Is it the product and service? Is it the person that they do business with? Because if those things change when a buyer comes in, the value is now different. I think of the town that I went to school in. They had an awesome pizza place. It was called Pizza Corner in Valley City, North Dakota. Okay, the frozen pizzas were great. The in-house actual pizza parlor was really, really good. When a new buyer came in, they changed the frozen pizza, and a lot of people went away from that brand very quickly because they didn't like it anymore. So when you shift those things, or there's the risk of those things shifting, hey, the product, the service, or the main salesperson or something like that, that's going to be a big, big risk for a buyer as they look at those different variables that exist. Will they return if the owner leaves and or changes are made? Okay. A lot of people do business with someone because they love the person. I think of banking for this. That's my banker. I trust him. I'm comfortable with him. I've worked for years. That person leaves to a different bank. Many times that consumer follows them to a different bank because they've built that relationship with them. So many consumers, like I said right there, are loyal to people, not the product necessarily. So it's so important to think about how do we keep on key personnel through a transition, after transition potentially. How do we de-risk around those things? And then when it comes to customer satisfaction, also, if you're looking for a way to measure that, Net Promoter Score is kind of the gold standard of how you survey customers to see how are we doing. Would you recommend us to somebody that you know? All right, our last misconception then around value is I built this business from the ground up. I know every inch and it can run without me. And as part of that, our customers are really, really loyal to us. This is what we call the hub and spoke driver of value. And whether you believe it or not as the owner, you are probably the key cog within the business. Not always. If you've done things the right way, you've worked yourself out of the business, but typically you are that key cog. Okay. So we always say the test for any business owner, if you have the value there and if you're wondering if things will operate how they need to once you're out of the business, is we say go on vacation or exit from the business for a while. Take 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, a month off. See if things continue as is without them piling up in your inbox or on your desk so that when you come back, there's a whole mess waiting for you. If everything just starts to take care of itself, you're in a really, really good spot. So as we coach companies through, processes and people improvements and just systems, we help companies really dial this in. So, we've pulled business owners out of their business. They're in their 60 hours a week grinding. We've pulled some business owners out in less than a year. We've pulled some out in a year and a half, 2 years. While revenue and profit just massively spiked along that time frame. So it's really, really important to work an owner out of the business because there's going to be a lot more value to it then. So it has to be able to run without you. As part of this, one of the most important things is document processes. Okay, this is a huge part of what we do with companies with EOS is we document core processes, because that is what provides scalability and is going to allow a company to be able to plug in new people. And when a buyer is looking at purchasing a business, they want an existent playbook. So when that playbook exists and they know how things work, there's a lot less risk for them. As another part of this that's really important is passing off those key relationships. So if you have salespeople or as an owner, let's say if you have those key relationships with vendors, customers, whatever, you have to work yourself out of those relationships over time along the way. Doesn't mean you can't be involved, doesn't mean you can't talk with those people and such, but you have to make sure that you are not the key cog in that relationship. And then just the amount of tribal knowledge that a business owner typically has, you really have to work on passing that off over time and making sure that you are not the ultimate holder of it as you grow a business. Because if you are, that is a massive, massive risk, and it really is going to devalue your company. If everyone always says, "Oh, ask the owner," ask Patrick or ask this person, they constantly have to come to you for answers. That's not a good situation. And then how important it is to just roadmap your exit. So as you think about it, obviously we want to be de-risking right away when you start a business. There's things we can do. We coach owners and teams on that. But as you're intentionally moving toward exit, people think like, oh, well, I'll just, in a year or two, I'll be out of my business. I had a CEO once of a multi-6-figure company, or multi-9-figure company, tell me all of a sudden one day, he goes, "Patrick, I'm going to be out of the business at Christmas. I'm going to retire." And this was in the summer. And I'm like, "In 6 months?" He's like, "Yep." And I thought, oh my gosh, this is not going to be good. So ideally, we want 3 to 5 to 7 years, if possible, of thinking of how do we do all of these things and work you out of the business and get the processes in place over time, so that when you're ready to actually exit, it's all done. Because way too many business owners wait way too long to jump on all those things. Okay, next item, let's talk exit planning. So why plan early? I think we've touched on that enough already. Okay, we need to de-risk. You never know what is going to happen. So you can intentionally plan an exit, but many times that exit is going to be there whether it's your choice or not. Okay, we call it the 5 Ds. So if you think of things like death, divorce, disability, okay, those types of items, when those pop all of a sudden, that immediately affects your business, and many times it forces an owner to have to exit their business before they ever want to or before they ever planned on it. So de-risking is one of the biggest reasons why exit planning, as soon as you possibly can in a business, is so important. Another reason, 70 to 80% of a business owner's wealth is usually wrapped up in that business. And it's really actually sad to see business owners work for 30, 40 years and build this great thing, and then they get to the end and they realize it doesn't have any value. Okay, they're leaving. I've seen business owners leave millions of dollars on the table, and a business either get fire saled or not sold, period, and it gets liquidated, and they capture a fraction of what that business actually really could have been worth, probably, if they would have done things more intentionally and planned earlier. The other thing is options. When you start exit planning really early, you have a lot of creative options. There's different things that you can do with insurance policies and deferred comp plans and things like that, where you can really run a lot of that expense out through your business, so that when it comes time to exit, you have very, very little to no tax liability. And that's one of the biggest things that kind of kills owners at the end is, they sell their business, and it's ultimately not about what you sell it for, it's about what you keep at the end of the day. So the earlier you can start, the more creative you can be with building out some of these different structures of how to really plan for a really killer exit down the road. And obviously, the 3 things we really want out of exit planning, we want to make sure that you get the value that you want when you go to sell the business. We want to make sure that you are securing your legacy, okay, with your employees and as a former owner, right? That's important when your business is many times very tied to your identity. And then the third item is we want to make sure you've set yourself up for the future, okay? So that when you leave, you have enough money. That you're going to be able to provide for your family, and that you've left your employees and your former business in a good spot. We have to make sure that you are set up for a successful post-exit. All right, let's talk about the 3 gates of exit now. So this is kind of how we move owners through this process of exit planning. And we really break it down into 3 chunks. So this whole process that we call value acceleration methodology, because the ultimate goal of it is, how do we increase your value as we're starting to move you through the exit process, and how do we de-risk it along the way, so that when we're ready to exit, we've put the business in a perfect spot and we have the value that we want. We're going to get the dollars that we need. We're going to be able to capture the value of that business upon exit and leave it in a really good spot. So our 3 gates are discover, prepare, and decide. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through those one by one and give you kind of a high level of what really to expect when you're looking at exit or succession planning in each of these kind of phases. Okay? So first one is what we call the discover gate. So what we're doing in the discover gate is we're really determining your readiness for exit. And part of this phase or this gate is putting together what we call an exit team. Because what our piece in the whole exit planning process of the greenhouse is we coach you on how to build more value, how to get the pieces in place within your business. Okay? the other pieces though to that team or other members of that team, you're probably going to have potentially a business broker, an investment banker. You're probably going to have a lawyer, a trust person. You might even have some sort of like life coach or counselor, especially if you have a family business. There's all these different people that can make up your exit team. And what we're doing in this process is we are determining, are you personally ready to exit? Are you financially ready to exit? Are you going to get, are the numbers where they need to be to get what you want and for post-exit? And then is your business actually ready to exit? Do you have the right management? Do you have processes in place? Okay, a lot of the things that we do in EOS with companies fit into that, hey, is your business ready kind of piece of the Discover Gate. So part of the Discover Gate is doing a business valuation. And if you hang around to the end here, we're going to give you actually a tool that will give you an estimated business valuation and a potential multiplier, which is pretty cool. So we're going to value and figure out where is your business at, what could it be worth, and so forth. So that range of and potential for value, because we may say, hey, your business is worth $3 million, but if we work for a couple of years on this to really drive more value, we can pump that thing up maybe to $5 or $6 million. Okay, that's a massive difference when it comes time for exit or succession. Okay, you run out a multiplier on that. Say you have a $3 million business, and I say, hey, if we can drive this, if we do these things, we can drive it from 3 million to 5 million. And let's say your business has a 5x multiplier. So you drove the value of your business up 2 million, but you actually drove it up 10 million because that thing gets multiplied 5 times. So sell your business for 3 million, or do you want to increase it by another $10 million, right? Kind of a no-brainer, okay? Then the other thing we identify is, what are your 3 gaps? So one gap we call the value gap, and this is kind of what's your current value versus what's the needed value of your business. Second one is what we call the profit gap. So when we look at what's the current profitability of your company versus the profit potential, we say, hey, if we coach you on these items and work on these key value drivers, we can make your business more profitable. And if it's more profitable, okay, and we have it in a good spot, obviously we have more value to it, right? And then the third gap is what we call your wealth gap. So this is thinking of what do you have for assets, including your business value, versus what do you need post-exit. So I've had owners come in where they go, you know, Patrick, when I run out the numbers, I need X $million worth of assets or investments or just dollars at the end of the day to last me for the next 20 years. And we run everything on the business and go, you're nowhere close to that yet. And they go, oh, I didn't anticipate that. So that's where the value building then comes in, and we have to start driving more value so that we can kind of close that gap that exists, all right? And one thing a lot of business owners miss out on is they don't realize, if you're used to running a business and you run all these expenses through your business, when you exit that business, you don't have the opportunity to do that anymore. So you might be living on, let's say as a business owner, a $300,000 salary for the year, and you have all these things running through the business. Well, once you leave, okay, you have more expenses than you probably had as the business owner. So now your lifestyle, the amount to basically live the lifestyle that you were, has actually gone up higher now. And many business owners miss kind of that gap that exists, and they haven't considered that. And this is where a lot of owners, once they get out of the business, they regret it because they didn't drive the true value that they needed in order to kind of cover those gaps efficiently or effectively. So that's a Discover Gate. That's kind of the first phase. The second phase then is what we call the Prepare Gate. So this is where we start de-risking the business. We start looking at, hey, do you have a good contingency plan? Okay. I've had business owners that run multi-million dollar businesses, and I ask them the very first day working with them, I said, what's your contingency plan? And they go, what do you mean? I go, well, if you were to get hit in your car and pass away when you walk out my door here, what happens to the business? And they go, I don't know, I guess. I said, well, do you have anything in like a will, or do we have like who's going to run the company after this if that were to happen or something like that? And they're like, no. Okay, that carries a massive amount of risk, and that's something that you should be thinking about day one of starting a business. Of what happens to it, where does it go, how does it continue, is it sold off? You know, this is where if you have a partner too, or any type of partnership, this is really vital to have in place. You know, buy-sell agreement, you know, with the other partner, or, you know, spouse that's left or whatever it may be, and life insurance to help cover that gap and purchase the rest of the business. There's lots of pieces to consider with this one, but that's part of that prepare gate is, hey, contingency planning, what do we need to do there? Then a huge piece of the prepare gate is focusing those areas, the personal and the business. So looking at all the work that we need to do to help prep you for exit personally, and then what do we need to do to help prep the business as well. And we do this in 90-day cycles. And every 90 days we go, okay, here's where we're currently at now after making these improvements. Are you ready to start moving toward exit, or do we want to keep reinvesting dollars maybe and keep growing the business? And some business owners, what they realize is, man, like once this thing is up and going and I started to remove myself from it, like maybe I don't want to exit it. Maybe they have a business that just prints cash and they don't really have to be involved. Well, that's a great investment to hold on to. Hey, why would you sell that maybe? So sometimes we see business owners as they move through this, they're making all these improvements and they realize like, geez, I really don't need to exit, or I'm in a really good spot to just hold on to this thing now because they have all the pieces in place. But every 90 days in the prepare gate, we're evaluating, what do you want to do? Do we want to keep growing and making moves, or do we want to kind of take that other crossroad and start moving toward true exit and selling the business? Then the third gate is really where, hey, we've now decided that we are at the value we need to be at, or we're ready to make that move, and we make the decision to sell. And this is where we start putting in kind of those final business optimizations, making sure that we start to put the last kind of puzzle pieces in place to sell. We're going to make sure that we find the right partner or exit option. And you've probably planned a lot of this along the way. You've probably hopefully developed some relationships along the way, or you've been intentionally, you know, building toward ESOPing it or whatever it may be. We get lots of questions on ESOPs. If you want to know more about that, let me know. But this is where we find what is that option and we start moving toward it. Okay, so finding that partner, you know, putting in and having an LOI put in and allowing a buyer to do their due diligence and those types of things. And we finalize that transition plan as far as business-wise, personally, family, if you have a family business, and then we execute that, that final sale and move through that succession phase. So that's the decide gate. And before we wrap up here, I want to offer you kind of the 3 gifts that I mentioned at the beginning. So the first one is, I mentioned this at the beginning of our webinar here, we call this the pre-score. So this is how personally ready are you for exit? And this is one of the most overlooked items, okay, when it comes to exit planning by an owner is, hey, what am I going to do after this personally? Because many owners say, oh, you know, I'm going to travel and I'm going to spend time with grandkids. And then they're a week post-sale and they were used to working 60 hours a week. And now they have every free minute every day. And they really don't know what to do, honestly. They thought they were going to do A, B, and C, and it just hasn't panned out like that, nor do they have an interest in that. And it really throws them for a loop. So this pre-score, this personal readiness for exit assessment is really, really good to dive deep kind of psychologically into, are you actually ready to start moving down that road of exiting from your business, right? The second one is what we call the freedom score. So this is your financial readiness for exit. So this is looking at where are you currently at numbers-wise, okay? What do you need numbers-wise? It's going to run out all the math for you and tell you. And then once we add in the third one here, what we call our value builder, we can now match up and say, hey, if my business is worth this and I have this many assets currently, and I'd sell my business, and now I have this pool of assets, let's say worth $9 million, but it's telling me for retirement, I'm going to need $12 million. Well, now we have a $3 million wealth gap that exists that we have to do something about. So that's where we can come in and step in and help with, hey, let's drive the value of this business for another year or two. Let's get you that extra $3, $4, $5 million to make sure that we aren't going to fall short post-exit, all right? So that's the freedom score. And then the third one is our value builder report and score. And the coolest part of the value builder is it's going to lay out all 8 of these drivers that we just walked through, okay, our value drivers. And it's going to show you where you are at in each of these. Okay, it's going to kick you a score from 0 to 100. And it's going to show your weak areas, your strong areas, where we can make the most improvement, and what are some of the things that we can start doing. And this is where we really come in and help coach companies on those items. And then also, as part of the value builder report, it is going to give you an estimated business value, and it's also going to give you an estimated multiplier for your industry and based on your business. So really, really valuable assessment, the value builder report and score, because it gives you those things as kind of a starting point so that you have an idea of what you're actually looking at within your business, right? So if you want any of those 3, here they are. I'll leave the QR codes up here for a second. But again, pre-score, we're going to determine personally, are you ready? Freedom score, where are we at as far as the numbers, the dollar values, okay? And then value builder report, where are we at as far as all 8 of those key drivers, and as far as what's my business valuation, estimated business valuation, and what's a potential multiplier. And that value builder report is also going to show you, hey, your business is worth this, but if we do these things, we can push it to this point. And our value builder system actually is proven to almost double your multiplier, which is pretty wild. So if you think of, you know, you have a $3 million valuation, we're gonna now pump that thing up to almost $6 million, okay? And we've had tens of thousands of people go through the value builder system program, okay, overall. So check out these 3. We'll also drop these into emails if you were signed up for this. So we'll link these in there, and you can definitely check those out, all right? Okay. Amy, anything else I'm forgetting?
I don't think so. I just wanted to mention we didn't have a ton of questions today, Patrick, but where can people go to find more information out?
Yeah, check out our website, which is www.growing4success.com, and I can actually let's see, we can pop that back up here if we can get our slideshow back up here. So we'll pop that up here in a second. So Growing for Success, and that's the number 4 in the middle. So right there, there's our QR code also that'll take you right to the Contact Us page. But what we do is we do free consultations with companies. So we can sit down with you anywhere from a few minutes to 90 minutes and talk about, hey, where's your company at? Where are you at maybe as far as value and succession, and just where we want to get to, what are the issues we're dealing with, and then put together whether it's, you know, running you through EOS or our value builder program, or maybe it's a very customized solution of getting you to that next stage, okay? Because as an entrepreneur, trust me, I know it. I've been doing it a while. Everybody has a dream of what their business really wants to be. And it's frustrating when you hit that ceiling, or you get stuck, or you're not quite sure what to do, or maybe you're put in that situation where you have to do something now and you just aren't quite sure what you need to do, okay? So that's where we can really come in, step in and help with giving you the tools, the systems, the processes of whether it's exit, succession, whether it's growth, whether it's a scalability piece. And like we said, that's our real big core focus and passion, and what we do with companies every single day.
All right. Thank you so much. This was really interesting. And like Patrick said, we can email out some of those free tools and get you access to that stuff if you signed up for the webinar. So thank you, Patrick. And until next time.
All right. Thank you.